do we currently live in a patriarchy?
I would say patriarchy is not a physical place. So in that sense, no, but yes, we do live under a patriarchal society. Yes.
Okay. And under patriarchy, are women oppressed?
I would say yes.
Okay. Under patriarchy, are men oppressors?
Not always. I think that sometimes yes, but also like I was explaining earlier, women can also be oppressors.
Okay. So, but you did say that women are oppressed under patriarchy.
Yeah, but I also think that sometimes too, men can be oppressed by toxic, like ideals of toxic masculinity as well.
Okay. So are you oppressed?
I would say relative to other populations, no. I'm a white cis woman. I have experienced different forms of sexism, patriarchal norms that have affected me and had like that have classified as a form of oppression. Would I say that the category I would put myself into is oppressed? It's hard for me to say. I think that as a woman, I experience forms of oppression that the average man wouldn't.
Such as?
Such as, can I use in just two letters?
Sure.
SA, DV, those occur to women at much, much higher rates. They can still occur to men, but those are issues that women experience.
It's not clear to me.
Rates.
Wouldn't that be something that occurs on the individual level? How would it be evidence of oppression? Because typically you're thinking of like a system would be oppressing you, or a government would be oppressing you, or the patriarchy would be oppressing you. Mm-hmm. But it's not clear to me. So you said DV and you said SA. Mm-hmm. I don't see how that's necessarily evidence of oppression.
Okay. I can explain my logic behind it if you'd like.
Are you saying that there's a culture, there's a SA culture?
Yes, there is.
There is.
I would argue that patriarchy and this system of ideas, I would argue personally that the way that it sustains things like DV and SA is because it teaches men that they are the ones in power, right? And when they don't feel in power, sometimes there are instances where they need to feel in control and need to feel in power, and those things will happen.
All men? What percentage
Not
of
all
men?
men.
What percentage of men, though?
I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head, but...
Well, you're kind of... isn't this just sexist on its face? Because you're essentially just pathologizing all men.
No, I'm not. Not all men.
You're saying all men... You're saying these men are
things.
inclined to violence and SA. That's pathologizing men.
I'm saying that the notions of patriarchy lead to men committing SA and DV at higher rates than women.
Can I ask you? Okay, so you say we have a culture. We have I can't use the word, but we have a SA culture. Mm-hmm. R word culture.
Yes.
I've heard this term, right? Mm-hmm. But like, if you look at prison populations, for example, you can be in there for murder, for example, and be just fine. If you're in there among the other inmates and you've been accused of some sort of sex crime, you're going to be targeted by criminals for reprisal, for attack, for violence, etc. So even among criminals, men who commit sex crimes they have to be put in protective custody. Yeah. So even how can you say that we live in a culture where this is deemed as okay when actually I think a lot of men would actually prefer to be accused of murder than to be accused of SA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I would argue with that is that we don't live in a culture where it's okay. We live in a culture where it's often swept under the rug and it's allowed in very nuanced ways. Mm-hmm. I would argue that, yes, I agree with your point that like most men would rather be convicted of murder than that. Yes, but that also you have to realize is that's been a more recent shift within our culture. Kind of as recent as feminism has been injected? I was going to say more so recently with the Me Too movement.
Recently shown or talked about.
Recently we've seen SA and DV cases been taken much more seriously in recent years. So I would argue that treating the prison example that you presented might be a result of that. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. I think it's okay for me to admit that I don't have this all figured out.
Let's bring it to DV. So you mentioned that women suffer higher rates of DV.
Yes.
But Andrew, and perhaps you have the stats on this. I've heard you make this argument. I'm familiar with these statistics. Is that I believe when it comes to where the domestic violence is one directional, mm-hmm. I believe this is the case, when it's one directional, they actually found that women victimized men more than men victimized women.
Yeah.
When you're using the term victimization, what does that refer to specifically?
They were
refers
Like
to
men are being
unwarranted
abused.
assaults, unwarranted touching, and unwarranted non-consenting engagements.
Do you think that's because women have been told that it's not okay for them to come forward at all? Do you think it's because
No. This is
majority of-
against
Are you
men.
talking
from
about,
like,
like,
violence against men perpetrated by women?
Yes, what I'm saying
not just
is-
violence, but also
Yeah,
SA.
All right.
what
So
I'm-
the rates, well, so that you understand, I can explain the position real quick. So the rates of SA against men are generally much higher than it is against women. It just depends on how we are going to utilize these metrics. Women seem to engage in unwanted touching of men far more often than men do of women. It's just that men seem to not care as much, which is interesting. They just seem to not care as much. However, women seem to care a lot more. They seem to care a lot more about it. However, it's still unwanted, right? It's just that nobody cares that men didn't want the unwanted touching. They just don't care.
I don't think it comes down to them not.
So I actually have the statistics here on this.
I
So
can give you an easy logical example if you don't believe me. If you have ever seen in public, for instance, a man walk over to a woman and maybe just put his hand on her back and rub her back a little bit, that's unwanted touching.
Yeah.
Okay? It's taken seriously.
Okay.
People really will hone in on it. However, if the role's reversed and a woman does that to a man, nobody gives a shit. They don't care.
I personally don't believe that, but it's. I think the cause of that problem being this big is because of lack of communication.
what?
I would
try and like really think a little deeper into it, because it's
Well,
not being
let's
communicated.
think a little deeper. I'll give you an example.
It's not being
If you
communicated.
go
first of
out
all.
on the street tomorrow, and I'll
I
bet you,
understand what you're
well, I
saying.
can't bet because it's YouTube, but I would give you, if I was wrong about this,
All right.
$500 if you were to
Okay.
take Brian and take you out to the street tomorrow.
Sure.
And Brian walked over to 50 different women, walked over to them randomly,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just patted them on the back and started rubbing it.
Yeah.
And then you went over to 50 random men, patted
Yeah.
them on the back and started rubbing their back.
Yeah.
Which do you think would have a more negative response?
I mean, it's obvious, but why?
Wait, it's obvious.
It's obvious. Of course, it's going to
Private
be.
chat.
Yes, the women. You're right. I agree with what you're saying. I think well, I'm trying to tell
Aren't
you.
both of those SA?
I'm sorry. Yes, it is.
Then no, why? So how
But-
come nobody
but-
gives a shit about men? How
Why
come
do they
nobody
not
gives
give
a shit about
it?
women SAing
They don't
men?
give
Why
a
don't
shit
they care?
about it because it's not communicated that is a problem to men. They hide that fact and make it seem like, I don't know. I don't even know why people do
So
that.
is it a
like
problem
it needs to be
if?
communicated.
So is it not a problem if women don't communicate it? So is the communication the issue, or is the SA the issue?
To me, a lot of it does have to do with the communication of that. Like, you need to be clear about your boundaries, and
We're
nobody
talking
is going
about
to know.
total I'm confused.
I-
We're talking about total strangers here. So hold on, Nick. Pull up the infographic.
Okay.
You're gonna have to move the chat, but
That's
so you have here. So there's reciprocal interpartner violence and non-reciprocal interpartner violence. So reciprocal, they're both fucking beating on each other. Non-reciprocal, that's where one's beating on the other is not reciprocating. So they actually found in non-reciprocal interpartner violence that women are much more likely to be the sole aggressor when it comes to domestic violence.
But let me quickly point out, just to kind of wrap this up, that what you just got done saying would be a thing that you would rage against, which is, well, wait a second, you kept it to yourself and you didn't speak up. You must have wanted it. How would that sound
That's the
the
same
other
thing.
direction if a man said to
'Cause
you,
it is
"Oh,
what they're
you didn't speak up, you didn't
Yeah.
say anything. You must have wanted it."
Yeah, they do. That actually does happen. That's the
Yeah,
whole
and-
point.
and
That's
you
the
would
whole
be
reason.
against it, right?
Yeah, but the difference is also, like, when we do try to communicate it, it's not taken seriously, nor is it's those things get
Really?
in the way.
Because I thought the argument we were just having
But
is
with
that now
men,
it's
they make
taken
it
far more
but-
seriously.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we voice it a little, at least a little bit more than men, that we don't like certain things
So it's men's
quicker than
fault
quicker than
that if women SA them, and they don't speak up, it's them. But if the roles are reversed and women
not at
don't
all.
speak up, they're a victim. right?
No. It's an equal.
Okay,
thing.
I'm sorry. I'm going to bring
Like,
it back to
not at
her.
all.
So, okay. So we were talking about oppression. Aside from the two examples that you provided, which it's not clear to me immediately that that's evidence of oppression, is there anything else?
Of oppression for me?
Well, you said how you've been oppressed. Yeah.
How I've been oppressed?
Because you said women are oppressed, and I asked how you're oppressed.
I know that you don't view that as an oppression, as a form of oppression. I would argue that personally, those are, because they are systemic. I know.
How are
we've
they
gone-
systemic?
I've explained this a couple times, but it's just the idea that these are
So is the government sending out, like,
things can be systemic without being related to the government. There are systemic processes that occur. There are processes that replicate themselves over and over again that have nothing to do with the government.
but
What
I
I'm
just
talking
so I
about
just
is
showed
the
you I
idea
just
here.
showed you data that indicates that when it comes to
That
non-reciprocal
data was from
It was from the CDC.
2001, but it was from a while ago, and
and domestic violence rates have actually decreased since then.
I would like to see another source, if I'm being honest, before we go solely based off of one. I feel like
All
Can I
violent
make a
crimes have
point?
decreased. All. Not
Okay.
just domestic.
But so it's not like. So are you saying that women are there's a systemic thing against men when it comes to non-reciprocal interpartner violence?
Could you repeat the question?
Well, I mean, using the infographic that I showed, which was a CDC study, it showed that when it came to non-reciprocal interpartner violence, that men were the victims in 70% of cases, which would indicate that in that context, women are much more likely to be the aggressor.
I think that when you're looking at data like that, you have to realize that women have been told not to come forward with these things. The majority of
No, it's you can make
Can I-
that same
it's-
argument.
that
You-
data is relying off of solely reported cases. It
You think-
doesn't include.
Do you think
hold on.
men are, wait, hold up.
The-
Do
you make
really
the same argument
do you,
about-
do you really
about
think,
men.
wait, hold up. Do you really think men are more likely to come forward with SA cases?
I'm saying that women.
Much less likely. So this problem, it's
exactly,
probably,
that's a problem.
the statistics are probably worse than
I'm not
what is
arguing
reported.
that. I'm just talking about women solely right now. I'm not arguing that.
Right, but if we're doing a comparison here, you could actually just make the argument that there's actually the man will look like a bitch if he goes to the police and is like, my girl hit me, my girl slapped me.
That's a bad way to. That's a bad way to
But
put
it's
it.
real.
Like that.
But
That's
it's
the
real.
reason.
It's honest. It's reality.
I don't understand.
Yeah, but that's not
understand
supporting- that's not supporting a very
that women
healthy-
report. Most SA is also self-reported from women.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're talking about the DV part of the conversation, like I can say that I know a lot of women personally, unfortunately, that have been more violent towards men, and I never condoned it. Like, that's not okay, obviously. But on the other side of the argument, where you were asking her, like, in what areas does that, like, come out where we're oppressed in that sense? Like, it's one example I personally can go to straight up is like career-wise, in any career. If you want to, let's say even in music, right?
Taylor Swift,
If
the
you were
highest
to,
earning-
no, listen.
Yeah.
If you as a man
You're
were
all
to get
over
in
the
the
place, but
industry,
okay.
okay, whatever.
engage. Okay,
you
go
can
ahead.
make sense of it whenever you want.
Okay, but I mean, you're talking about music, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's in the music industry. Like, if I were to enter
Women are not
Just listen.
succeeding
Just
in the
listen.
music industry.
Just listen, my love. Look, it will take a longer time for me to want to get to a successful part in my career, because I have to deal with, and I have, with people like that I have to work with, producers and things like that, that will only present an opportunity to me if there were something extra involved,
Okay, the
and if that
casting
was
couch.
not.
You're talking about the casting couch.
I
But
mean,
hold on.
that's
Wouldn't that
very
be helpful?
relevant.
I'm not saying it's right, but wouldn't that actually get you in rooms?
yeah.
Hold on, let me finish.
Get me in rooms where I
Wouldn't
have to do something I don't want to do.
No,
to
but I'm
get
saying,
when
no, you don't even
another
have to
man
do anything. You
doesn't?
can just be a young, beautiful, attractive woman, and you can
doesn't
maneuver.
work out
Stop
like
interrupting.
that.
You can actually, for me to like be able to get in a room with somebody who's really high status, I have to be a somebody.
Yeah.
As a woman, you can be in a room with a fucking some major
I have
musician.
been in those situations.
Who's the most famous you've been with? Like, been in a room with?
Rick Rubin. But he hasn't personally tried to. He hasn't personally tried to do anything to me. But I'm talking about the people.
You had that opportunity just because what?
If he said if I did something for him, type of thing, or what do you?
That's
Then
not
what is your point?
That's not what I'm saying.
What did you have to do
You're
to
saying,
get in that room with him?
Because I'm a
I didn't
woman,
have to do anything to get in that
saying-
room.
here's
But
the
if I
point.
were to want to get my career taken seriously and not just a la-di-da, this is a
you
play
have to be
date.
talented.
No
So do the
shit.
guys.
No
Except-
shit.
Except
But
we can't just walk into a room with somebody.
Yeah,
we
but-
have to work extremely
and then when
hard.
you do, you don't have to also. We have to do the hard work and potentially go through all of those. You can deny it or not. I'm
have
telling
to do,
you
we
from
have to do the
experience.
hard work, and then we can get an audience, and then we have to reprove ourselves.
That's bullshit. But
no,
it's
no,
okay.
it's not because
Unless you've been in that.
no,
you
I
say
can't
so.
just
And
go
I'm
to I
speaking
can't
from
just go to
experience.
Miami,
you're-
find the
I don't know.
most successful guy there, jump on his yacht just because I'm an attractive dude. Any really attractive woman can
That
walk
sounds
down
like
to a port, show herself off to really
Right.
successful men, and just jump on
Get
their
on
yacht.
the boat.
Yeah, that's how you don't get taken seriously, though. You have to have all these little loopholes to get there, and then you still might not
Hold on.
be.
First off, the entertainment business is incredibly cutthroat. This idea that somehow,
It's
like,
an
nobody
example
gives a
that
fuck.
I personally have,
You think anybody gives a fuck whether you're a man or a woman? People want to make money. Point blank. Period. If you're fucking talented,
All right,
If you're
sure.
talented, it has nothing to do with it. And in fact,
Sure,
as a
it
woman, you
has a
can
lot.
leverage your beauty to potentially translate into,
very much
you know,
so.
some sort of opportunities.
Okay.
And then, in addition to that,
Okay.
you're saying, "Oh, women oppressed." Taylor Swift is like the highest earning
That is the best
artist.
example you can give.
But this idea that women can't
pretty
make
much
it.
any
Whereas
female
you're
artist,
in front of
they
somebody that
capitalize
can
on
give
their
you
beauty.
real life experiences, like more than dozens.
What are you even
At a
talking
about?
about? I don't know what. Okay, I gotta bring it back. I gotta bring
Examples
it back on track.
of
Go ahead. What do you have?
oppression.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to ask. I think the instance that you provided of like, okay, a woman can go and capitalize on her beauty. Yeah, that can totally
Yeah.
happen, right?
That's
What
fair. I mean,
per-
it's,
can only
it's one of
take you
their
so
attributes.
far.
But I have like a sub question that
Okay,
goes with
okay.
that, and I want to
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
like your honest opinion. What percentage of women do you think are beautiful enough to get that privilege? Is it the majority of women, or is it the
Bro,
minority?
mid chicks are get.
Yeah, but that person.
so-
I'm just
does
genuinely
not
curious.
get
Like, there's no
taken
wrong answer.
seriously.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know if I would give a percentage of it. It'd probably be like 40% of women could probably do it.
Could reach that like level of like.
Like use their beauty to stick their foot in the door to be able to get opportunities. Yeah, I definitely think so.
That sounds
Okay.
like a movie version of like
No,
what
I mean,
you
that's-
think it is, because
No, I
that's
know.
not what it really
okay,
is.
hold up. How do you think OnlyFans is blown up?
That's a
'Cause
whole other
women-
fucking type
women
of
who
thing.
are,
You can be
Like
any
40% of the 40% of the highest, I guess,
Yeah.
attractiveness of women
That just has
can
to do
jump
with
on
your looks,
a
though.
random website and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Beauty gets you a whole lot in this
but
in
not
this culture.
in OnlyFans, sure.
No,
and
in
things that
any-
have to do with just your
any,
image. Sure.
Okay, no,
But you can't
any
be
entertainment
pretty
industry.
and taken seriously and like, oh, you're talented, and then not go through a group of people that pretend like they're gonna like facilitate
okay,
your career
no.
or whatever, and not try to abuse their power.
No, beauty gets you a whole lot in pretty much any
I
industry.
agree, but not to that extent.
All right, I'm gonna have to.
If we were to assume for a second that it was only 5%, only 5%, that you could agree at least that 5% of women could possibly go that route with beauty, right? Maybe not as high as 40%. Maybe 5.
I don't know, maybe, possibly, but still not without
Does that- I mean,
zero.
does that sound
not without
realistic?
zero encounters of the type that I'm talking
I got to
about.
move it on. I do have to move it on.